you're on the lip of a big wave, just keep paddling.
For sure.
Just commit to it, because when you hesitate, that's when you get flogged the hardest. Fortune favors the brave. In that moment of shock, he just punched one of them in the face and walked off, and it just happened to be Andy Irons.
No way.
The surfer having the most fun is going to get better. The surfer not having fun may quit surfing. They might just plateau.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Basis Surf Podcast. I'm here with my buddy Jonny Seifert, and we're going to get into how we met, but I met him a while ago. He's a surf coach. He runs a surf school, and he packs some super heavy Mexican barrels of the type that you see in magazines. I remember we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and then we were chatting, and then you sent some photos over, and I saw those, and I was like, what the hell, man? Like, seriously gnarly waves that you're packing.
Well, that's the beauty of a photo, is you just get that one.
Oh man, I forgot to load up the photo. Well, we'll have to
like under the water.
We'll have to put it on. We will definitely go ahead and put that into the clip, because it is massive. I mean, when you envision super heavy Mexican, mainland Mexico barrels, like, that's basically a photo of Jonny packing one of those.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot of them to be had. It's like when we met, we were in Indonesia, so just getting in and out of the water was the hardest thing, because it's sharp reef, and you're like, oh, I need a rip. I need it. Like, how do I even approach this wave? It's like a puzzle. But out here in Mexico, it's sand bottom, and you just find a rip and jump in it. And the problem isn't getting out. The problem is, once you're out there, you're like, how do I get back in? I have to take one of these things. Like,
that's the hard.
Pretty funny.
No, I mean, I've definitely been in some of those situations. That's for sure, man. Well, dude, that's a whole topic in and of itself. Finding a rip when it's big like that. Oh man, getting out at a heavy beach break. I mean, I've surfed that spot that you've surfed, that you surf a lot. And
oh yeah, I forgot.
That spot's super heavy. I mean, okay, well, it was basically 1 minute. It was like barely shoulder high, and I was just chilling there. And then the next minute, it was like pumping double overhead, like chunky tubes. Guys were like stand-up barrels, and I was just like, holy crap, this is not what I signed up for. I was just on my little shortboard, and I'm just like, oh, what is going on here? But yeah,
I'll never forget my first time out there. Like, I just, luckily I trained as a lifeguard, which I recommend all surfers do. You don't have to become a lifeguard, but like, just go to your local lifeguard club. Like, if you're Australian, you're sweet, because they got these volunteer clubs all over the country.
Okay.
Super accessible. But like, take a lifeguarding course. Like, just even if you don't become a lifeguard, obviously if you become a lifeguard, you can pay off your course. So
yeah,
that's a good way to do it. But like, I'm also kind of like a little bit lazy, which can be really useful as a surfer. And like, a lot of people look at that wave and they go, oh God, I have to get that barrel right. I gotta get out. And I've seen hundreds of them. Like, they show up at their little normal shortboard. Just like, everyone who's been there for a few days is like, oh, this will be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And then they just look, and they just like, and they see a lull like you've just described, and it's like, okay, I think I can paddle out. And almost looked the name, but that's okay. Everyone knows where it is. It's not a secret. But like, at that break, you basically, if you do time it right, you do one duck dive and you're out.
Yeah.
And you can get out on a tiny board that you have no business being out there on. But what I do is any break, and this applies to anybody surfing, anything over, like, you don't even need to put aside. Someone who has that quote that waves aren't measured in size, they're in increments of fear.
Oh,
so like Sean Thompson.
I love that. I've never heard that.
I don't know. We'll have to find that one. But yeah, basically what I do when I get to a break is I go, am I scared, right? And if I'm scared, I'll go, okay. And I'll be like, being scared is good. It's what keeps you safe as a surfer, right? And so like, I got to Pasquale. Sorry, man. I was pretty scared.
Yeah.
And but also I wanted that barrel so bad. I was like, I don't care. I have no business being here, but I will get that barrel. And then I looked at these huge, like, 8-foot barrels, and I was like, I ain't paddling out through that. So then I just looked around, and I think I would encourage any surfer to do that. Like, look around, like, is there an easier way out? Like, look for the easy way. So a lot of surfers are like, I got to do the hard way because they're like,
Right.
oh, like manly, whatever. Like, screw that.
No,
like,
no.
those guys are the worst kooks. They get in your way anyway.
Yeah.
So, like, I just walked up to the river mouth. So the beautiful thing about a lot of waves is that there is an easy way out. And sometimes it might be farther away.
Right.
You know, I wanted that little carrot. It was dangling in front of my nose. And it was only maybe, like, the paddle out's like 15 yards, maybe 20 yards max.
Yeah.
And you're out back. Totally safe. And it was so tempting. And I was like, nope, too scary. I just walked, took some humble pie and walked. It was only like, 100 yards or 200 yards. I walked up the beach.
Yeah.
And the waves there were about knee high. And there's a river mouth. And I know river mouths like create like channels. So I was like, okay, maybe I can just go up there. And by the time I got up to the river mouth, it was like knee high. It's such a trippy wave because it could be 15-foot barrels out front. And then you go up to the river mouth and it's like maybe waist high, but probably less.
Yeah.
So I was like, sweet. So I jumped in up there.
Awesome.
And then I slowly drifted back into position. By which time I was fully shitting my pants. And I was just like,
And then you're like, oh man, I actually have to go for one.
yeah.
That's so
and
true.
I know, yeah. And I know I could have, I was like, how do I get in? Like, and I spent an hour just contemplating how to get in and just peering over the edge of these ledges. Like, nope. And then just watching everyone else having like these killer barrels. Like, and I was like, you've just said, like you see people just having like stand-up barrels and they're just sitting in there just looking around, and this most beautiful blue water that's spinning and offshore, and you're like and you're just thinking to yourself, that needs to happen to me.
Right.
And then you're also thinking to yourself, I'm going to die. And then you're having these conversations with yourself, and then you realize and then that's when your lifeguard course kicks in. You're like, okay, what's my options here? Like, okay, if I get absolutely flogged, where are the currents? Well, it's gonna just push me straight in. And I got like 10 buddies on the beach. Okay, what do my buddies have? Well, my buddies have phones. They, okay. So then you start to think, okay, maybe I can do this. And then the other thing is other people, often a hazard people don't even think about. Like, I might fall, whatever, but like whilst I'm underwater getting flogged, am I gonna encounter a paddleboarder from Southern California or something? Like with like a huge blade in their hand and like a hydrofoil coming out of their paddle, and then like and she's just like a machete bolted to the bottom of their board, and you're just getting flogged on the inside, and like that kind of stuff's more dangerous than the wave oftentimes.
Right. I totally agree.
So then I was just like, I just remember being out there, and like it's hard even to admit this, man, but like there's this inner voice that was so loud that I actually said the words out loud. I was like, Johnny, what are you doing here? Like, what are you doing here? Like, it wasn't funny anymore. It's funny now, but like at that point, I was looking around me, and these guys, it was like, John had just been for a visit. Like Bruce and Andy have been coming for years, and like there's so many underground chargers that are like no stickers on their board. There's they just ride and charge and make it look easy,
right?
And it's not. And then you're out there like, why am I here? Like, this isn't, like, I'm almost disrespecting the other guys by just even paddling out here, Like, what am I doing? And then I got one, and I'll send you a photo of my first wave ever. So I was paddling for it on a 6'4". So I was like, oh, that's my big wave gone, right? My 6'4",
right.
like such an idiot. It's actually our buddy Drew Eastwood from Aura Surf Resort. So we met at Aura Surf Resort. Really cool. And like Van and I, so he was the only one resort, I think, right?
Right. I think it was you two.
Maybe one other guest.
You two, and then Andy.
No, guests wise.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, there was.
Yeah.
Was I the only one? Maybe I was.
Maybe like one other guest. Probably, because it was like low season, and like we had maybe 3 or 4 guests in 3 months or something. But
really?
Which is a great reason to go to that resort, because you'll have well, no, they're probably doing way better now, full up, but. So Van came along, and we were hanging out, and this guy Drew Eastwood, who was just like a hard worker, like East Coast surfer, like wakes up early, grinder, like in and out of the water, just works way harder than everyone else, just worker, just pop. And he sold me this he sold me this killer like a 6'4", yeah, and I was like, 6'4", like kind of rounded pintail. Yeah, that'll be great. 10-foot bows. That's so funny. So I'm a big guy too. I'm like, you know, I'm 6'1" and like not light. You know, I weigh like what's that, 95? What's like 95 kilos? Like 85 kilos? Like it's probably like 100 and like close to 200, like 180, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But like
how
heavy
the
is
works.
the point. I'm a heavy dude, so like I got this. Drew Eastwood's like a ninja, you know. He's like fit, lightweight, like super, not like my body size. So maybe it was a good board for him. But anyway, like, so I jump on his board and I'm out there and I realize that board doesn't paddle for you know, like I can't paddle that thing. And then I, can't paddle it for big waves. So then I get on this wave. It's like the 20th wave I'm looked over the edge of, and my buddies have already gone in, and I'm just like,
oh no,
alone. It's like,
oh no,
I gotta get one. So like I start paddling for one, paddle for it, and I'm like, okay, I'm into it. And then like I'm still getting sucked up the wave face, like paddle, and I'm like, no. Okay, I'm not gonna get it because I'm up on the lip. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. It's okay. Like I'll just get the net, you know. So I kind of stop paddling a little bit. Yeah. Never do that. Internet lands. Just keep paddling.
Always.
Especially on big waves, and it feels like you're paddling for an eternity, right? Yeah. But I didn't know this stuff, so like I paddled for it like normal, and then when you get to the lip of a big wave, it's the offshore. You know that like the offshore wind gets more pronounced at the lip. Yep. Because like the wind has to come up and go over, and it compresses right there. Right. So like just as I was about to get in the wave, like the offshore tried to like pluck me off the wave, and then I kind of like paddled a little like less because I was like, part of it didn't even want the wave anyway.
Right, you're just scared.
And
at
then
this
it
point
became apparent that I was going. Yeah, at that point I was like, oh, it's probably just gonna roll underneath me, and then I was like, nope, shit. Like, and I just like, and then I'm like, you know, nearly upside down, and it's like super vertical, and there's just this. I just remember looking down. There's nothing under there's air, you know, like there's a wave somewhere down there, like in the bar distance. Like, so then I was just like, well, might as well try and get to my feet. And I'm so glad that I tried to, because it would have just been a flogging. But I got to my feet just about, and then like once I got to my feet, I was like up here attempting to bottom turn, I guess. Yeah. And there's this funny photo of me, like, you gotta always, on big waves, you gotta point your board straight down. So your only goal is to get down the wave, because you have so much time to get down and around. So I was riding it like some 4-foot beach break. So I got to my feet, like, started the bottom turn, became one with the lip, and I got fully got flogged. And then I was under the water, like rolling around, and the beautiful thing with sand bottom barrels is the sand. So I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna die on a reef or something. So I was getting rolled around, and then at one point, like, I didn't know which way was up. So at one point I was on my back, and then I just gently alighted on the soft sand, because the sand's always getting churned up, so it's not hard packed, it's soft. So I landed on the sand on my back, and my board just came and just landed on my face, and then I had my leash around my wrist. Somehow my leash was on my wrist, and my board just slowly compressed me into the sand. But it was really gentle. It was like a little stroke. It was just like, I just kind of like landed, and then my board went, yeah, it was. My board was just like, and I was like, okay, my leash is around my wrist, and my board is like above me. But like, I'm such a positive person that even when that was going on, I was like, I know which way the bottom is now. So like, you know, just my board my board got out of the way, and then I planted my feet, and I just did a little push and came up to the surface, and then I came up, and I was fine. And then I was like 2 feet away from the beach, because that's how that is. You know, I don't know, but like if you're not in the rip and you get flogged, you're pretty close to like the shore. You've traveled a long way underwater. So like, oh man, so I came up and like, well, I've got lucky thousands of times at that spot, and it just made me more confident, you know. But like I came up and I was okay. I had my arms and legs and head, and I was like, I didn't die. And at that point, that felt like a huge win, and I was like, I didn't die. Oh yeah. And then like I came in, of course, because I was like, I'm gonna just call it a day. But I came in, and like I was just like, all right, okay, so I didn't die, so let's go again, you know, like. And then I might have paddled out, like, you know, after a glass of water or something. But it's weird, like the main point of that really long story, Ben's, you're gonna have to do a lot of editing, man, because I long story.
Nah, dude, it'll be fine. This is good.
But there is the point. The point of that story is like, you know, there was one. What was it? There's a few technical ones. Like if you're on the lip of a big wave, just keep paddling. Just
For sure.
commit to it, because when you hesitate, that's when you get flogged the hardest. It's the ones where you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Then you get drilled, and the ocean is like fortune favors the brave. If you like hesitate, you're gonna get so flogged.
Right.
But yeah, there was a really good point to that one. For like surfers who want to do more big wave stuff. I guess just research your spot and think about what's around you, and a lot of it's mental, you know, with surfing.
For sure.
In and out of the water, and also even at a beginner level, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, there was. Maybe I'll come back to it. But there was a really good point I had.
Well, we can always come back to it.
Sorry, but
we can always come back to it. Wow,
yeah.
that was an awesome story. Why don't we let's actually rewind even a bit. I mean, so yeah, I met you in northern Sumatra. That was nearly 10 years ago. I was looking at my photo. That's crazy. Nearly 10 years ago. We were on this like random, dude, I remember getting on the plane to get there, and like to even fit my board bag onto the plane. They had to take the seats out of the plane. That's how small the plane was. Yeah. And I was like, dude,
were you the only non-Indo?
This is the tiniest plane. This is the tiniest plane I've ever been in. Like, where am I going? And then like we get down there, and
so
then it's you and Drew. It's you and Drew, and then we were just like cruising around. Like, you know, we didn't properly score because like the swell I don't think was like properly there. I mean, I caught awesome waves, but it wasn't like pumping, but it was still like such a special experience. And I mean, I kept in contact with you guys. I still know you. I mean, nearly 10 years later, it's kind of crazy. But like, so that was obviously a ton of fun. But rewinding actually even further, like how did you get into surfing? Where did it all start for you?
Oh, right. Yeah. So we grew up skateboarding in the 90s. Me and my little buddies, you know, we lived for it. I remember like once I was in an airport, and first I was probably like 10, and I had my skateboard, and we had like a flight delay, and I was just like, oh, cool. Like, so I was just like trying to skate around this airport without getting caught by security, but I was young enough.
Yeah.
They didn't care. It's pretty but yeah, so like we thought, like, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, like that generation, that was me and my little buddies like in Buffalo, New York. And then I would have been a snowboarder too, but our local Play It Again sports store only had skis, and then I learned to ski, and then straight away like the freestyle skiing was like the thing I wanted to do, because they're doing backflips and sliding rails, and I'm like, that's insane. That's awesome. So like I guess I came from like an extreme sports background. Like for as long as I can remember, like I didn't want to just ride a bike. Like as soon as I could ride a bike, I was like, okay, if I put a piece of wood like this and something underneath it, I can get some air. And it's like, get some air, man. It's like all I wanted to do was like
just
I'm like
natural
the coolest people in
born
the
like
world
Charger.
to me. Well, just like all the coolest people in the world to me were the ones that were flying. I guess essentially it comes down to flying. Like you know, if you can hit a jump, like in my little Johnny, like 8-year-old mind, if someone's flying through the air, I'm like, holy shit, that's cool. I want to do that. So like I used to watch, you know, gymnastics in the Olympics, and I was like, that's cool. Like my sister used to do figure skating when she was really little, and I was like, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, like anything involving like flight that kind of looks like a dance.
Yep.
There's a bit of dance in surfing too.
For sure.
Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but basically like I learned to surf because my buddy went to New Zealand, and he learned to surf there. And I was living in England at the time. He came back from New Zealand, and he had some surfboards, and he was like, I'm a surfer now. And there was this mystique, like no one in my family surfs.
Right.
Like no one, my great grandparents, no one, like no cousins, or I think one of my cousins now, but I taught him how to surf.
Yeah.
So I was little, and surfing was this mystical thing, and like I was born in Northern Ireland, you know. Yeah. Like Ireland, not known for their surfers, and
I mean, kind of now.
Water's cold, or now, yeah, but not then. Like, but
right.
Like water's freezing, and like you walk down to the water with a wetsuit, people are like asking if you're okay. You need, like,
right.
like, what's wrong with you? And like, so there was, I just, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So I didn't even think surfing was an option. I was like, I'm happy with skateboarding and BMX, whatever. And then my buddy came back and he's like, oh yeah, we can surf in England at the time, because we moved from England over to Ireland. And sorry, other way around. And then he's like, yeah, we could totally surf here. There's a couple waves, and there's actually a little surf scene in Bournemouth, of all places, which is like the worst surf spot in the UK, basically.
Oh God.
But it has like, it's one of those spots where there's loads of people who want to be surfers, but unfortunately their local wave sucks. So what's amazing is you have actually some really good surfers there, but it's like, I guess, like Florida or something, where you have some talent, but the wave is just not that good, and it's mainly wind swell and just real shitty and cold.
Yeah.
But we thought surfing was so cool. We're just like, we're gonna just surf. And we didn't, when you don't know any different, your local spot's the best spot in the world, because it's the only spot you know. Yeah. So I learned to surf in the shitty onshore beach break in England, not even Ireland or Scotland or Wales were the best. Like the Celtic nations have the best surf. And I'm in England going,
right.
Okay. And I'm not even in, like, there's parts of England that pump. Wasn't there. I was like the worst.
Just the crap part. Okay.
But yeah. And I think I used to do things like take my foamy on like the public, the double-decker English buses, and, like try and like stuff it up the spiral staircase.
Dude, you're committed.
And I used to hide my board when the bus came.
You're
I just
so
wanted to
committed.
surf. And like my buddy from New Zealand, like he put like a board with no fins down on the grass, and he's like, this is the pop-up on like a tiny shortboard. And he was like, this is the pop-up, and this is how you get to your feet. And I was like, cool. And then I just got a board for Christmas for like $100, like a foamy, and I was like, okay. And then I just I didn't even know surf lessons existed, really. I was like, oh, so I'll just go surf.
So then you guys were just figuring it out yourselves, basically, right? You're like watching other surfers.
He already ripped. Like,
oh, he did?
Yeah, he learned it in like a year. He only went to New Zealand for a year, and he was already like riding a shortboard down the line.
Well,
maybe not ripping. He was shortboarding down the line, which is amazing.
So how did you,
and
what was your process then for improving as a beginner? Can you even, like, were you just watching him and just trying to copy what he did, or what were you doing?
That was definitely watching. I think when you don't have lessons, you just go down the beach and you're like, well, that looks easy. And then you get out there and you're like, nope. But what happened for me was boogie boarding came along. So I knew I wanted to surf, but honestly, because they were cheaper, and our family didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up. So I was like, I want to surf. And my mom's like, cool, here's a boogie board. So I got a boogie board, and then I realized that like boogie boards are fun, and they're like, and you learn a lot about the ocean. Yeah. And we're pretty strong swimmers already.
Right.
I actually was a terrible swimmer growing up, and I had 2 near drownings in pools, which scared the crap out of my mom. So like when I was old enough, she just signed me up to like a competitive swim club. You're going, and I was like, but I don't want to. I don't care about swimming. And she's like, you're going. Like, you scare the shit out of me. Like, you nearly drowned twice. I pulled you out of the bottom of a pool, and then a lifeguard pulled you out of the bottom of another pool.
That's so interesting. But you're not scared of heavy waves, because a lot of people that have those near-death experiences become like they have PTSD from it, but like you kind of gravitated towards it.
Oh yeah, I think something that they say about drowning is it's a very peaceful way to go. And like I was a kid, and I loved the water. I sucked at swimming.
Oh man,
I was I was such a weirdo, dude. But yeah, like I've twice had that view of like I'm under the water. I've kind of accepted my fate, and I'm just like looking up at the bubbles, going like, oh, this is quite nice.
That's probably why you're good in big waves.
Out of nowhere.
That's probably why you're good in big waves.
Hey, I never thought of that, man.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm never, but like, it's terrible for everyone around me.
Because they're worried whether you're going to drown or not. That's their main concern.
Like, I definitely would have died twice if it wasn't for some like local pool lifeguards. But
oh my God.
Yeah. But I didn't come out of that and go, oh, I'm never going back in the sea. I just was like, oh, cool, lifeguards, they're here. That's nice. I'll go swimming tomorrow. Then.
So
weird. But yeah, so progression was boogie boarding first, and I recommend that to anyone, especially people with egos about surfing.
Yeah.
Because like some of the best surfers in the world are still boogie boarders, and they switch, or they grew up boogie boarding, And also, at the beginning of the podcast, I was saying like safety, like get a lifeguard course if you can, or watch one on YouTube. Bro.
Yeah,
really help.
What did boogie boarding
boarding
teach
is
you
the
though?
most safest thing
Just
you can do.
those guys can
You
like
can
take off
ride
deep in a
waves
way
sideways.
surfers can't. Ah, yeah.
Yeah, it's also like from boogie boarding, it's water confidence too, for sure. Because you're essentially just swimming. You lose your board all the time, and like you're swimming. That's good. Also, when you have propulsion, like when you have those little fins,
Yep.
you understand about you don't even realize it, especially if you're a kid, but you're downloading like how hydrodynamics works. Like just the fact that your fin is driving,
Right.
like without cognitively learning, you're just figuring out like propulsion, speed, like drag. You know, if you drag your heels, like you slow down. If you point them straight, you go straight. Like just all these little things that you just play with as a kid. You don't realize how much like science you're downloading.
Well,
and then so that's really good.
So question on the
safety.
boogie boarding though. Because I was surfing this one break. There was a bunch of boogie boarders. I don't know if this is necessarily true, right? But like a lot of surfers, like their dream is to be able, because as a surfer you can do like the no paddle pop up and like take off on the wave. And then I was watching these boogie boarders. It was like dredging, barreling, heavy waves. Obviously that facilitates doing the no paddle pop up. But like most of the time when boogie boarders, they're not paddling into the wave, right? They just kind of cork and then they kind of take off in that more critical, meaty part of the wave that allows them to get in. So it's the legs. So does it teach you to
all legs?
It's all legs, but does their positioning teach you? Does that translate to surfing in terms of like where you're aiming to position yourself so you can get into the wave easier, or is it not really?
For sure. So because boogie boarders hate this, but because boogie boarding is easier at the beginning levels, because you don't have to pop up, right? Because you don't have to pop up, the best thing about bodyboarding is you learn about waves. Simple as that. If you want to learn how waves behave, how they feel, how they work, how they break, where you should and shouldn't be, grab a boogie board and go out there, because you'll get hundreds more than the surfers. You get more waves. And you can ride a more variety of waves. You can boogie board when it's like knee high, but you can also boogie board when it's like, there's a guy, Shambles, absolute legendary Irish like underground charger, and he's shown me photos of him boogie boarding Mullick Moor at like 20 foot, and all the surfers are getting towed in. He just drops from the sky like a little frog, and he makes those, and he can make those things. So like they're incredibly versatile. But like, I've been rambling, and apologize because you're gonna have to edit like so much of it. But bullet point is, even if you already surf now and have been surfing for years, get on a boogie board and you'll learn more about waves. It's not about you and what you're doing on a boogie board. It's about your chin's close to the ground. You're looking at waves. You're downloading the waves. You're seeing the wave, and you're getting a lot more waves, and you don't have to worry about popping up. So you can position yourself deeper. And you're just going to see, your eyes are going to see more waves. And because you're from the waist down, you're getting dragged around, right? When you're on a surfboard, you're floating above a lot of the currents. So you move around a little bit, but not much. When you're bodyboarding, you're like, sometimes you're up to your neck, sometimes you're up to your waist. And any current, or on a boogie board, for example, when a wave breaks, you can feel that you actually get sucked backwards first and then go.
Right.
So if a wave's coming behind you, there's like this in breath, and then you go. Even when you're paddling, your ball's up. So like when I'm surfing on a surfboard, on a normal surfboard, I have the illusion that I'm just paddling my arms, and the wave's coming, and I just paddle, go. But what's really happening is, like, even though you might feel like you're moving forward, you're going to go backwards a little bit, and then you're going to go forward. So just little subtleties like that, like.
So it's like boogie boarding is almost like this. Yeah. So, go ahead. Sorry.
It's a more pure form of surfing because you're attached to the waves.
Yeah.
Because you start to become the wave. Like if you see a dolphin.
Yeah.
I think there might be a delay. Sorry, I'm talking over it. But
you go. Sorry.
Yeah, it's cool. So boogie boarding, you're more connected to the waves, so you learn about waves. If you really want to learn about waves, body surf. You're going to learn more than the boogie boarders even. So then when you jump on a surfboard, you'll be way better straight away. I've actually met, when I was in Bali, just before I met you, there was a bunch of Spanish bodyboarders and a couple Portuguese guys from Super Tubos, like Chargers.
Yeah.
And one of the Spanish guys was like, yeah, like Pablo was like, yeah, I'm going to learn to stand up surf. And we're like, be careful. This is Indonesia. There's reefs. It's like challenging waves.
Right.
He's like, but he boogie boarded really good. And we're like, I know I know you're a good wave rider, but like, be careful. You're going to get
right.
messed up on the reefs. Dude, I swear it was like 2 or 3 months and he was surfing like head high Indonesian reef breaks, like down the line, figuring out turns.
Wow.
No problem.
So it's like a cheat code.
If you'd never surfed and you went out, yeah, if he'd had never surfed and he went out and just learned to surf, he wouldn't have it wouldn't have worked like that. But because he'd been bodyboarding like for years and years and years, he just jumped on a surfboard and within a couple months he was just awesome. And like I couldn't believe it. And I was really because we were gonna give him shit about it because like, you'll never surf. But we're always like the banter, like bodyboarding's so much easier. Like surfing takes skill, and then he just got on a surfboard and schooled us, guys. And
well, it's so true.
And it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like when people think about surfing, people just focus on like the very pinnacle of the skills that they need. They just focus on like, I want to do turns.
Yeah.
But really, the way I think about it is surfing requires this pyramid of like skills, and at the very base of it is wave knowledge. And then only if you don't have wave knowledge, you could be like, you might know how to physically do an aerial, but like you're not going to catch any waves. And like the very base is your ocean knowledge, and you definitely need that. And it's interesting that boogie boarding, that bodyboarding, and just riding waves is going to kind of accelerate that process. So it sounds like a very interesting like cheat code to get better.
And that's a very Irish thing. Like I'm very proud of. I know I don't sound Irish. I left one on this 5.
I hear a little bit of it.
There was a civil war where, this is a wee bit sometimes. But like when I was 4, I mean the late 80s and early 90s in Northern Ireland was like a war zone, and we lived there. Both my parents loved Ireland, but we just decided to move to the States.
Yeah.
But something that's my dad's American, so it was awesome for the family. So like in Ireland, we have a strong tradition of bodyboarders, and we have some of the best bodyboarders on the planet. And what's interesting about Ireland, which I realized only when I came back from Indonesia when I was hanging with you, was like in Ireland there is no like surfers or cooler thing at all. And everywhere else in the world, it's like cool, like it's boogie board, and then when you grow up and you can actually ride waves, then you'll get a surfboard. Right. And I think it might be the waves in Ireland are so conducive to like world class bodyboarding. They're just heavy, slabby. That's all you see online is the heavy, slabby waves. But in Ireland, there's loads of beach break, and there's just loads of like. There's some like waves that are sand bottom and they break like knee high for a mile long, and you can ride it. You have every kind of wave. Wow. It's incredible. It's a really good country. It's just freezing. But like you only see the heavy waves. But the thing with Irish people is they're kind of gnarly as well. So like, in a nice warm country with light winds, you might have a boogie board and you might just like, oh, this is nice. But in Ireland, if you're a little kid and you have a boogie board, you like climb down a cliff and scramble over like a slab of granite reef and then just stuff yourself into barrels all day long. It's gnarlier. But like what I think is cool is that like I'm kind of proud of the fact that Ireland really respects their bodyboarders like a lot. My boss and a good friend of mine, Portrush Surf School, he was like a multiple national Irish champion, and he's flown around. Like he went to like the world's championships in California, and like famously punched Andy Irons in the face once.
What?
just because like they were like, he didn't know who he was, and they were like they were in the Hawaiian boys were in this hot tub, and they were just stretching after their heat. And they were like the gods of the sports, Andy Irons. When he was really young, I think it was before he had his world title, but not far off. He was a big deal, and he knew about it. He was a big deal. But Irish people have this funny thing where like you could be Kelly Slater and they'd just be like, "What's the crack?" They're not going to be like, "Oh,
that's awesome." Though.
So like anyway, so my buddy's like 15 or something, a little cocky Northern Irish guy, like He's still
15.
in a good way, something like that. So and then the Hawaiian guys are huge, and they were like 20, or they were huge, big guys. He might have been 17 or something. I don't know. He's like this little Northern Irish scrapper guy, and
Dude.
and they like he left something happened. Like he left his towel like on the side of the pool, and one of the Hawaiians walked past and splashed it, just like little Grom. Because they have this whole hierarchy in Hawaii about respect.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's not much hierarchy in Ireland. In Ireland, in general, there's not. We're a small island. We don't have enough people to have hierarchy, right? So,
Right.
So basically, my buddy's there, and this dude just splashes his towel. And I was like, "What? That's not nice." So he gets up and he's like, he goes over to the hot tub, like, what are you splashing my towel for? And they're just like, what? Like they can't even believe he's even fighting back, because these guys are like members of the Black Show. It's like gnarly guys.
Dude,
he's like
super gnarly.
He's like, you fucking, and he's just like, what are you doing? Like, this is, my towel's wet now, you bastard. I'm like,
hold on, did he know who Andy Irons was? Did he know who Andy Irons was?
Yeah, he didn't give a shit.
But he didn't give a shit.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he was.
What?
He's a famous surfer.
Right.
He was just like, I don't care how famous you are. You don't splash my towel.
Dude.
So they were just shocked. And then he, in that moment of shock, he just punched one of them in the face and walked off. And it just happened to be Andy Irons.
No way. And I can't believe
I don't think, like, it probably didn't even hurt him. Like, but the whole I just imagine the pool and the Hawaiian guys all like, who the fuck is this kid? Like, should we go kill him later? Like, oh no, he's too young. I don't think we're allowed to kill him. Like,
yeah, that's my
so
question.
funny.
Like, how did he walk away from it and not be in a wheelchair? You know what I'm saying? Like, they probably must have been so shocked.
I have no idea.
Like, I don't know what to do with this. They just are just like
they
didn't
were
know what to
probably
do.
like laughing, to be honest. Like they probably thought it was funny, but
Right. Oh my god, that is.
I wasn't there, and never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Who knows what actually happened in that pool?
That's a good policy.
So
how did you get from surfing in England and Ireland to surfing in northern Sumatra? Like, how did that all work out?
Yeah, so that's a big jump, and I didn't do it the most conventional way, like I probably should have, and like just progressed my skills and got really good, and then gone to Indonesia. And this is a really good point, actually. I'm glad you asked, Van, because like often just put yourself with people who are much better than you as much as possible, and you'll progress way faster.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So if you go to Indonesia, you'll progress way faster because there's pro surfers all around you. Be willing to be the worst person in the lineup. That's hugely important, and enjoy that. And rather than getting put off by people being good, get inspired by it. Give them a high five. Get stoked on other people's waves. I think that's super important. The people who are all into their own surfing.
Sure, yeah.
People who are really really excited about their own progression. They progress really slow.
Yeah.
People who get stoked on other people's progression progress fast. It's just something I've noticed. It sounds backwards, right? It sounds kind of weird, but it's something I've noticed.
Interesting.
But yeah, so I started riding shitty onshore, storm slop essentially, and even that was fun. So then what really got me going is I got a job at a multi-activity center that did like canoeing, hiking, surfing, multiple whatever activity, and like they do like accommodation and food. So I was able to leave home at like 17 and live on this corridor of rowdy surf instructors who were all really good fun, and they basically looked after us like parents, and like so, don't pay to do things if someone's gonna pay you to do them. So my surfing was pretty terrible at that point, and then the main reason I wanted to go to work at this company was because that company was in Cornwall. Now Cornwall is probably the best surfing area. It's a little peninsula that sticks out. They actually have their own language, and they have their own flag, and they're part of the they're legally England, and they're part of Great Britain, but there's a whole Celtic nation of Cornish people, and they have incredible surf, right? And it can be world class, but it's a hell of a lot better than where I lived. And I was like, no way, I'm gonna get accommodation, food, and I'm gonna be able to surf every day, like, and I'm getting paid, like I'm out of here. So like my high school teachers actually let me go like a few months before the end of term on my last year of high school. They were like, yeah, you can leave just so long as you get the work done. So I was like, all right. So I went over and started training as a surf instructor, which is a bit of a joke. And I've done this with a few sports where like I learn the sport and a week later I'm trying to go on an instructor training course. Just, but I like when you don't have much money growing up and you're like, the toys are expensive. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I could buy a couple surfboards.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, it's like my choices as a kid. Like I could buy a few surfboards and then bus money to and from the beach, which is like a 40-minute one-way trip, and then paying for surf lessons like not even an option for me. I was like, nope. And then like because they're expensive and like I might get one and it'll be awesome, but that was it. And then I was like, or I could go to a place, become a surf instructor, and just use all their boards, make money, and surf as much as I want. I was like, sweet. So that's what I did. And
sounds
then,
like a good strategy.
Yeah, and like in England, you only have to be able to. I think you only have to be able to go left and right, and then you can get your instructor training for it. So then my first, honestly, my whole surf journey started on that lifeguard training. Yeah, so I was about 16. That was even before I left home. So yeah, I jumped in a pool and we trained every weekend for a few months. And, we got our lifeguard cert. We did a ton of first aid, quite high level first aid stuff, like kind of EMT, just a little below an EMT level. And then basically, so that was the ticket you needed to be able to be useful to a surf school. So if you had your lifeguard cert, but you were a terrible surfer, the surf schools would take you because you could do water safety. So that's something. So yeah, it went like bodyboard, you know, riding whitewater with foamies, and then lifeguard certificate. And then I was able to get employment. That was the platform. Bye. And then I left home and worked in a multi-activity place where they bought us our wetsuits, they bought us our uniforms. Food arrived 3 meals a day, like I'm like a canteen, and then like they gave us accommodation, and then our paycheck came through once a month. And you know, it wasn't much, but like we had no outgoings. We just saved it. It was beer money or saved it or whatever. And that was really big turning point in my surfing, because then I was in Cornwall.
And so how did that get you to northern Sumatra?
So what that did is that actually made me
all right.
That did get me there, because once I was in Cornwall, like there's pro surfers living in Cornwall, like some of the best surfers in Europe live. And like our hometown was home to the Ash boys, like two brothers, like Ruben and Joss Ash. You should just type that into YouTube right now, because Ruben was doing aerials 10 years ago that like haven't even come onto the world tour yet. Like his aerial surfing was amazing, and Joss is just like a style master. He's like really beautiful, like kind of anti-irons on slow motion, sort of just real classic surfing. So I was able to watch good surfing in real life, because like and that was like inspiring. I was like, whoa, this is sick. All right, cool. So then I made friends in Cornwall, and then I was like, okay, this is awesome. So I went on a trip to France to try and get barreled. There's many a funny story from that trip. My buddy Alex is still one of my best buddies. Like,
how did your first attempt at getting barreled, was it successful or not? Hey everyone, it's Van. Hopefully you've been enjoying the podcast. Hopefully you've been listening to some good stories, getting some good tips that are helping you improve as a surfer. If so, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review. It'll only take you literally a few seconds, and share it with your friends. That's the best way you can support me, so I can continue to create awesome new content for you. So thanks. Let me ask that question. Well, you were a boogie boarder, so you might be pretty good at reading waves.
No, by then I was surfing. I should have taken the boogie board to France. That would have been a smart move. But yeah, so like we just So my friends were giving me shit about this the other night, because I was the youngest. I was like 17 or 18, and I didn't have my driving license yet. And my buddies Smudge and Alex were taking turns driving. So we were going through the French countryside for like 10, 12 hours at a time. We're camping in bushes, like sleeping in our board bags and stuff. And we'd arrive at a spot, and they'd be super tired from like they'd been driving and they'd been sleeping rough, and they were like, they were a bit older than me, you know, like they were like 26 and 28. Why am I going with old guys? Like they're complaining about sleeping in board bags. Like they say they want like showers and a tent. I'm like, these guys are losers. But
high class.
It was funny. So then so then I was actually glad I went with that, because I was way more comfortable, because they had some common sense. But so then we get to the surf spot called Biscay Ross. It's like a classic French beach break. And looking back, it probably wasn't that big, but it was hollow. I'd never actually seen a hollow wave, and I'll never forget the sound of the crack. When the lip of a hollow wave hits the water, it's not like a rumble like a normal wave. It's just like,
yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck is that noise?
Right.
And it was beautiful too. It was like just
right.
a barrel. All barrels are beautiful. So we rolled up on the sand dune, and it was like, oh, it's a barrel.
Yeah.
Like, cool. Like, we weren't scared. We're like, let's go. And I was like, come on, boys. Like, and they're just like, we're just gonna sit in the car for a minute, Johnny. Like, mate, like, we've driving for like 10 hours. Just like, give me a minute. And I'm just like, but can't you see it's barreling? Like, we gotta get the fuck out there. And they're like, Johnny, screw you. Like, you've been asleep, because I used to sleep in the car like a little baby. Like, the whole surf trip, I was just like, they always like shove stuff up my nose and stuff, because I just be asleep like in the back.
Yeah.
So I just paddled out there, and I don't even remember that. I just remember taking off on a wave. I think I saw the inside of a barrel for the first time. And actually, my first time I actually saw the inside of the barrel, like, I was so badly out of position that as I was trying to make my bottom turn and pull into this thing, my buddy was about 30 yards down the line, and he was also pulling into this thing and making his bottom turn on the same wave, just like boom.
Right.
We both got
You're
so
just
fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, we got so flogged. But
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, nothing positive happened, but it was just cool to see it out. So like, once I'd done my first surf trip, I was like, surfing went on hold for a little bit. Like, so I went back to Bournemouth, to see my parents, and then it was university, and my university was landlocked. So, but it's in the skinny bit of the UK. It was on the border of Scotland. So I knew we had good waves in Scotland, so that was cool. And I knew we had good waves on the East Coast in Yorkshire. Yorkshire actually has probably the best waves in England. Don't tell. No, we can tell people. It's the biggest county in England, so they'll never find them. But York, it's like the Baltic Sea, but there's like incredible surfing. And I was like, okay, there's some surfing, but it was freezing, and like, I didn't know anyone who surfed there, and like, so I basically didn't surf all the winter. 3 years of university, I didn't surf in the winter much, like, except surf trip here, surf trip there. And then in the summer I was working, so I had the impression I was surfing, but I was really just pushing people into waves. I didn't really improve much. So I had like a plateau.
Right.
So like, I improved quite a bit, because when I lived in Cornwall that summer, I surfed every day before work, after work.
Right.
And then I just hit this plateau of like going, I think you might have felt this. How about like, maybe you, like, did you find once you could go down the line both ways and you could do top turns, that like you just did that for a few years? I don't know.
For sure. I mean, I feel like once you
so I think a lot of people get to that
are
point.
Going down the line, it's hard to get there, and then you hit this plateau, like trying to do proper maneuvers. That's when
Yeah, maybe I
would say even before maneuvers. Yeah, well, I think that like just going down the line, like probably 90% of people, that's kind of where they get, and then that's as far as they get. Like, they're trying to do maneuvers, but they're not really doing maneuvers,
Or maybe they're not sure why they can't do these maneuvers, and they're just like, going down the line feels good. Right. And you can look pretty cool, especially if you buy like hipster wetsuit and a mid-length board, and you put your knees really close together. You can go down the line, be sexy, and it is fun. But like most of us, we want more. We want to shred, So I was like, I saw myself as someone who surfed, and I enjoyed it. All I knew is that I enjoyed it, so that was cool. And then I knew I had to go to university. They in Europe, they offer you like a gap year. They're like, okay, you've got a space in university. Do you want to go play around for a year and then come back to it? And I was like, hell no. Because like, if I go and I can get paid to surf in Bali, I'm not coming back to school. No. Like, I knew myself too well. I was like, I'll just knock out this university thing. And they actually had a degree in adventure, which is pretty sick. So I got that done. It's just it's like adventure media. So it's extreme sports coaching. Yeah, so they like taught us how to lead a bunch of extreme sports and be like mountain guide, kayak guide, raft guide, whatever. But then we also learned how to film a little bit, because like our university could kind of tell that, this is before Twitter and, Instagram maybe just come out, and YouTube was pretty much the only thing online. And they were starting to see that the industry of extreme sports and surfing as well, it was going from like winning competitions to like having cool videos online. So they invented this degree of like extreme sports and media combined degree. So I was like, I wasn't even going to go to college, man. I was like, I'm getting paid to surf. Why would I ever go to college? And like some of our people are like, one day you'll wake up and you'll be like, you might actually want like to own a house. And I was
Right.
like,
Not sleeping
yeah,
board bags.
yeah. It's like, but board bags are awesome. And they're like, you're 19, dude. Like, so,
Things will change. Things will change.
yeah.
So then how did you make it? So is that when you were like,
so yeah, I finished college, and I think that's when I was able to progress. So like, our college kind of held me back for sure. Just surfing wise, it improved other parts of it, but surfing wise, it held me back. And then I like, as soon as I finished college, I'm gonna go the world, right? Like but then I was like, oh, I'm gonna need some money. And then I was like, I just wanted to surf. And I did enjoy the coaching, and that was as fun as surfing. You see your buddy get a wave, you feel good. It's like that when you're coached. Like you see someone who's never stood up, stand up, you're both stoked. You might be as stoked as them. I know I am. That's why I still do it. But and you must get stoked, man. Like when people come back to you and say, "Oh, I watched one of your videos, and now I can do this maneuver."
Oh yeah, totally.
Feels good, huh? Yeah.
So then you so did you go straight to Aura?
So no, so after university, I went back to Cornwall, because it was like my happy place. So then, and there was pumping waves. So I went back to Cornwall, and I was thinking like, just to get a surf. And then some dude offered me, like, even before I like fully graduated, they were like, oh, like we really need lifeguards, Johnny. Like we know you have your lifeguard certificate. Like we're desperate on the beach right now. Like we need more lifeguards. And they're like, well, and the pay was good, and they were like, it's a secure job. You're on the beach. So you can surf before and after work. And like, we're allowed to surf, I think 20 minutes a day in our lunch break, which is cool. And they were like, look, we're going to teach you ocean safety. We're going to redo all your qualifications to a higher level. And then we're also going to pay you in British pounds, which at the time like dominated American, and it was like the strongest currency in the world. So I was like, okay, I've just graduated. I can do 3.5 months, get a ton of British pounds, live at my mom's house, save almost all of it, and then I can go surf. So that's what I did, and like, yeah, I had a great summer on the beach, learned a lot about the ocean. Like, lifeguarding is a killer career, any lifeguard watching this, it's pretty good. And then, so I did that, and then as soon as I finished lifeguarding, I was like emailing every surf school in the world, basically. Or surf, I really wanted to do guiding, because it's like, you get access to better waves and you get more time to surf for you. So I was like, got this gig, and actually I went to Indonesia first just to figure out maybe I'll get work when I go over there. But Indonesia is so damn cheap that like I had what I thought was like a month's worth of money to find myself a job, and I came back 4 months later with some change, and I didn't even have to work a day. It's just like learned how to speak the language and just hung out with local Indos and just ate rice and fish and just surfed every day. And that was like, boom.
So what was that
big
transition?
Jump up in the progression.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, well, that's what I'm curious about. Like, what was that like for you to go from basically not even surfing that much in uni to then, Indonesian reef, which is...
I mean, it was humbling, because you'd like to think you're pretty good. Like if you're, back in the day, if you were from the UK and you could go down the line left and right, people would be like, oh, he's a pretty good surfer. Sick. It's not like California or Hawaii where they'd be like, that's, you're beginner still. I thought I was pretty good, which is funny.
Right.
And then I got out there and I was like, oh, okay. I got a long way to go. And this is super cheesy, but if you can't see it, you can't be it. But it's kind of true. And I just paddled out with like incredible surfers every day, because you're in Bali, there's people from Brazil,
right,
Australia, like, so I just surfed, man. And that brings me to one of my little points, just so I don't forget. But yeah, like key points, just surf as much as you can. It's not rocket surgery, my buddy would say, if you can. A lot of us have jobs and families. It's hard, and that's when you need to be laser focused with your progression. But if you can, just surf as much as possible. Do that. So that's what we did. We surfed every day in Indonesia.
That is the biggest thing you need.
Yeah, it is big. It's amazing though. I've seen people who surf once a week progress way faster than I did. But they had lessons and stuff. So, but yeah, so I used to just paddle out and watch, just visual. I mean, I'm very visual. I just watch and learn, like monkey see, monkey do, and just, you know, if you look at like any pro surfer and ask them like, what are you doing when you're a kid? And they're like, every waking hour I was looking at surf magazines or watching surf videos. Like the real pros, it's just like a diet of like feeding your mind, like that image, just drink that in. And that's something you can do.
I totally agree.
Yeah. I mean, were you the generation of surf mags? Or
I mean, that's the way so the whole reason why, you know, I create a lot of the content that I do is because I'm constantly studying surfers as well, right? And I feel like a lot of surfers will watch these clips, but they're just like, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah.
They're not really getting into the fine detail. And that's what you realize when you talk to when you talk to the pros. They're paying attention to the subtlest detail, and they're studying every aspect of whatever, Tom Curran doing a bottom turn or whatever it may be. And they're just like really, really, really studying all the minutia. And so that's why a lot of the content I create is just, all right, studying surfers. And I think that's where you can learn a ton. And that's probably what you were doing in the water, right? So
yeah, in the water is even better. On the magazines and YouTube is really good too. Once you're in the water,
right,
you got more senses. It's not just your eyes or your ears. It's like you're feeling the water, you're smelling the water. You can see, oh, if I paddle over,
you can just see the speed
where she is. Yeah, the speed is mind blowing. But yeah, so you gotta watch and learn. Be out there as much as possible. And if you can't be out there, read about it, drink it up. And the other thing is like surf with heart. You know, like one of the reasons I was saying bodyboarding is so important is because like bodyboarders are some of the most stoked people you'll ever meet. I have so much respect for that.
Right.
You know. You don't often see bodyboarders saying like, oh, it was pretty bad out there. Like they're just out there shredding, and it's awesome. And then, you know, Jamie O'Brien's really good at this in his podcast and his videos as well. Like, use the right equipment for the conditions. So if there's no surf, don't just sit at home being salty and bitter. If you wake up and wherever you live isn't surfable, like get a paddleboard or paddle out, or just go for a swim in the sea. And look at your local break when it's flat, and just take a snorkel out and be like, okay, where are the reef? Like, oh, this is the wow. Like, if you ever look at a beach break when there's no wave, you can see the place that normally is a rip because it's like a deeper channel, and you can start to look at the coastline and be like, oh, that's interesting. Every time where there's like a river mouth or like a little, even if it's like a water, you know, those like storm drains, like, oh, there's the storm drain, and in front of every storm drain there's a rip. So that's cool. And you're having fun. You're swimming.
So will you do that in Mexico? Like to figure out where the rips are, like during a, you know, because the thing is the beach breaks are going to constantly, those channels are going to
move. Yeah.
You know, move around a bunch. Well, I guess you have the river mouth that you go to as well.
Yeah, I guess that's more like reefs, but still like, I think it's good. My main point is just like, your goal should be to have the most fun, and this is so cheesy, I don't know. And it's like the surfer having the most fun is the best surfer. It's like, no, they're not. The surfer having the most fun might be a shite surfer who can't do airs and you can, or whatever. But I think what I take from that surfer having the most fun is the best surfer thing. It's like the surfer having the most fun is going to get better. The surfer not having fun may quit surfing. They might just plateau. Like, and that's a good thing that you can ask yourself as a surfer, be like, am I having fun when I go surfing? And if you're not, like, you need to work on that. You know, everyone's like, oh, I just need to like get better technique. And it's like, well, why are you getting better technique? It's like, I'm going to get philosophical here. Like when you go deeper, it's like, I really want to do airs. It's like, why do you want to do airs? Like, do you feel like once you do airs, you'll be fulfilled as a human being? And some people will be like, yeah, and fair enough. Like go and do airs,
right?
You know? But then, like, once you get to once you do your air, you might feel empty, and you're like, oh. And like the reason I want to do airs, I don't do airs. Like I can air out the back of waves and go flying, but I'm not. That's a kick out. That's not an air. And like the reason why I want to learn airs is because it looks like a lot of fun. And where does fun come from? It comes from the heart, and you love it. And like I bet you when guys are doing massive airs, they're probably going like having the best time. So my motivation is just because it looks really fun. And you know, same with getting barreled. It's like my motivation. Like why do I bounce off sandbars, godforsaken locations in the middle of nowhere, and get flogged? Because
Right.
It's so much fun. Like when you see that view for the first time and it goes over you, you just like, that's worth it. Like that's awesome.
Right.
So I think like when you're progressing, you gotta use whatever equipment allows you to have fun. And there's just like this formula.
I think that's so important.
Yeah. And if it calls for paddleboarding, go paddleboard. If it calls for like a hand plane and it's knee high, but you can stick your head inside a little barrel, you're still surfing. And, you know, the guy who's being salty on the couch going, oh, it's not big enough for me, bro. Like, they're not learning anything that day. And you're out there getting your head,
Right.
You're sticking your head into, like, ankle-high barrels going, whoa. You know? And you're learning you're learning way more than anybody else
Right.
that day, you know? So, like, be stoked.
I mean, I think I think to that point, right, there's a lot of people, they're like, oh, I need to work on doing turns. And then they're riding like some super skinny shortboard, and then they're not catching barely any waves at all.
So they're not learning.
They'd probably have a lot more fun if they rode something with some more size, and maybe they're not going to be shredding as hard as they want to, but they're probably going to be having more fun, and they'll probably be learning more about how to be a good surfer than just bobbing around like a buoy on a tiny under volume surfboard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I love that video. That's actually how we reconnected. There's this video that you put about like, hey, you can do really good maneuvers on a bigger board. And like, I tell that to my clients, like, if you're not on your feet, you're not learning stuff. Like if you're not getting waves and standing, like if you're not getting a bunch of waves and standing up on them, you're not learning. You're just bobbing around.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do need to learn to ride shorter board eventually so you can rip it harder. But until you're like, you know, there's a lot of, I think that brings me to another point I had is there's a lot of ego in surfing, and I have it too. Like we're all humans with egos, but like you want to look cool with a shortboard under your arm, but the guy out there on like a wave storm ripping looks way cooler than you, and it's just the way it is. So like, that's why I think these catch surf and like all these foamies that are now, you know, the foamies that are, once they figured out how to put good fins into foamy boards, the reason those things are so popular is because they're good progression tools. Like you have fun, right? And like what happens when you have fun? You learn way faster. Like have you ever been in school and there's like a teacher who's telling you really interesting stuff, but like they're just down and they're boring and they're telling people off and putting people out in the hall, and and no one's having any fun. It's like you're not learning if you're not having fun. You need to feel relaxed. You need to be able to play. And I think that's really important, but especially when you're a beginner. It's like, just ask yourself, why are you surfing today?
So
like,
true.
Are you surfing because you want to do this awesome maneuver, in which case you should get out of the water? Like, you should be surfing because that maneuver is really fun and you want to learn it. You got to keep...
Such an interesting philosophical approach. I've never heard anybody talk about it like that, but I think it's so true.
I've been lucky enough to watch, like, every day. I've been surf coaching for 15 years now, and like, I see it every day. Like I have a lot of data, right? I see people who are like, and it's usually guys. So, but not always, but like I see people who are in really good physical shape and they do some other sports maybe. And they're like, I'm going to shred. Like I'm going to get this. Like I have to really focus on my technique. I'm going to focus on my technique. And they really struggle. And then you have people who are just like, oh, I've never surfed before. Like I'm just going to play. And they get right to their feet. And, it's like a paradox, you know. Obviously, you have to try so that you can become better, and obviously, you have to put effort in. But like, where is that effort coming from? Is the question I would ask before you paddle out. Like, you know, are you putting loads of effort in because you want to look really cool in front of everyone else? Maybe, but that's not super joyful. Like, are you putting effort in because it's just really good fun and surfing's fun? Okay, really valid. You're probably going to surf harder. I surf with a little 8-year-old kid, and it's fun teaching kids because you can't just go up to them and be like, here are the finer points of the bottom turn. They'll just be like playing with sand or like sticking a toy elephant up their bottom, like, not paying attention. You know what I mean? Like, they're kids, right? And it makes you think, like, you have to convince the kid, like, why should I listen to this guy? Like, I can ride waves on my belly. Like, why should I pop up? And then I have to think about that. And I have to put myself in a little 8-year-old mind and go, all right, well, like, hey, little guy, like if you learn to pop up, like you can do this cool thing called a bottom turn where you actually go like twice as fast. And guess what? Like going fast is really fun. And when you're learning to surf, what can hold you back a lot and it held me back quite a bit. It's like you're trying too hard and you're not having fun, and then you get in a weird headspace. My instructor trainer, when I was doing instructing, we did our level 2 ISA course a few months ago, and he was like, like beginners, you know, they're like, most of the coaching is technical, like put your foot here, you know, keep looking forward, don't drop your head, like that kind of stuff. As you get better, it becomes like, you know, 50% technical, 50% psychological. As you get to like pro level, it's like 90% psychology and a little bit of technique, like a little dusting of technique.
Totally.
So he explained that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So like, as you guys, you know, as you get better at surfing, and as I've gotten better at surfing, like more and more you should think about your headspace. Why are you surfing that day? All this kind of stuff. And if you keep it light, it's really important. Like if you're lighthearted, you surf better. But it's like easy to say, oh, be lighthearted. But the way you achieve that is like, you know, you give yourself a bit of a benefit of the doubt. Like if you don't do the maneuver, if you're surfing badly that day, like don't be super hard on it. Just be like, I'll surf better tomorrow. Okay. You know? Yeah. And then you do use like technical things, obviously. I find YouTube really helps. Like I'm really visual, right? So something that really, really helped me fall in love with surfing again was, you ever watch like Brett Barley's YouTube videos? Like he's like a guy from the East Coast.
He has really good stuff. Yeah.
His tutorials, I think he's only done 3 tutorials, but they are the best videos he's made in my imagination, like in my mind. And and he's kind of having fun too with it. He's playing with it, and he's a pro surfer. So for me to see a pro surfer admit that, like, you know, they don't make all their waves, and that they, like, you know, because you usually see the ones they make, and he's just like, oh, here's a bunch of waves where I tried everything and did everything right and still got messed up. And you're like, oh, it's a bit more accessible then. So Brett Barley, like, maybe we could link to him after this. And then there's a guy called Chapin Kruger from Surf Pro Techniques on YouTube. He does incredible stuff, really similar to what you do, Van, where he just basically he just watches pros surfing, and then he just does it on a loop and watches it and pauses it and watches it, pauses it, and then goes, ooh, what's he doing there? And then he goes out and tries to do that, you know. And he's surfing amazingly now, and he's a surf instructor. He does really good retreats and stuff. So like, and I don't know if he actually went through any formal surf coach training like I did. I think he might have done, but I think what he just did is he just did it for himself, improved, and was like, maybe I can improve other people. He started to like share that stuff on YouTube, and now he has a website.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff out there that can help people. Yeah.
So YouTube helped me. So that was like, I got to Indonesia, and then I started watching other people, and then I started watching YouTube, and then I was like, oh, okay. And then I got like went up a step, and I was like feeling like in Indonesia, I was like feeling okay, like I'm able to surf these waves. But my motivation has always been like fun, obviously, but like the better you get, the more different waves you can access, right? So there's a bunch of waves that like I can't surf right now, and I don't want to paddle out there because it just get like, you know, it might be cool to be in the channel, watch some of my buddies, but like, so when I go surfing, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do to be able to access this wave? So when I was in England, I was like, what do I need to do to be able to go to Ireland or surf in Scotland? Okay. And then when I'm like surfing Scotland and Cornwall, I was like, all right, what do I need to do to go to Indo? And then I didn't know, so I just bought a ticket. I found out pretty fast.
Right, but you're taking a very incremental approach to it.
I was, except the Indonesian thing. Like when I got out there, like Drew once, our friend, he once told me, he's like, what are you doing working as a surf guide in Indonesia? Like you can barely duck that. And he just called me on it. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I know you have your ISA surf certificate. I know you're a surf coach on paper, but like this isn't a coaching role. You're a surf guide, and like next week the Vulcan Pro team are coming. Like, what makes you think you can be out here? And I'm like, I want to get better as a surfer though. And he's like, what? Like, why didn't you go to Mexico? Like I was like, you know, he's American, so if you go, you know, if you're in America, you go to Mexico and you improve. whatever. He's like, why didn't you go to somewhere closer? And I'm like, you don't realize that in London you can get cheap flights to Indonesia. Like I paid like $700 for return flight, and I could change the date of when I came back. That wasn't that hard because the British pound is strong, and you know, you do a couple weeks as a lifeguard, you're going to Indonesia. So I wasn't incremental. Probably should have been, but like honestly, like it's a really good point, and it's a good question, because people who think I need to do this before I can unlock this, they often slam their head into a wall, like trying to get this one piece of technique that they think is the key to unlock everything else. And I would say, rather than, you know, be watered, right? Like when a river flows into an obstacle, like a rock, it doesn't just try and whack the rock, because it's water and it will never break the rock. And the river flows around the rock and keeps going. And then, you know, you got to do that with surfing. Like if you're struggling on something, don't keep working on that thing. Work on something else, and it might figure itself out on its own.
Right. Plus, you're just going to get frustrated, and at some point,
and then when you lose
get bummed, and
you lose the fun, and then you just get out of the water, and you're just like, we've all been there, had those frustrating sessions where you're like, this sucks. I want to go home.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so like that's, you know, you gotta, what was it, the Kung Fu master, others like Bruce Lee, like, be water, my friend. It's true. It's like if you have an obstacle, you gotta flow around it. You can't just keep hammering on it. It's good to go back to it.
Well, so what are totally.
Yeah.
What are some of the most common things that you know, because you run a surf school now, what are the most common issues that you see with your kind of beginner intermediate clients?
I mean, with the beginners, I think the most common thing is just, you know, well, I'll put it this way. There's 3 things that can make you learn to progress way fast. And I think it applies to beginners, intermediate, at any level. I figured this out over a long time. One is your equipment, right? If you have the wrong equipment, it's just going to suck. Like, simple as that. And it's not your fault. And what happens is people with the wrong equipment, they often blame themselves. I've done it, you know.
Right.
I was like,
just like you at Puerto Escondido on a 6'4".
Yeah. In big barrels in Mexico, I thought to myself, Johnny, you shouldn't be out here. And that wasn't correct. I should have been out there. You know, I'd been in Indo. I was a trained lifeguard and a strong swimmer. Like, I had every right to be out there. But my board was so small that I was like, only Kelly Slater could have made that drop. So I'm not gonna. I shouldn't be out here. You know. And then I just got a bigger board, and it was just like easy takeoff, like way before it was even a wave. And I just snowboarded in and just started packing closeouts. Then like loving life. And it was the board. It wasn't me. It wasn't my fault. I hadn't changed as a surfer. I hadn't all of a sudden overnight become like 10 times better at surfing. I was on a 6'4", and then I went up to like a 7'6" proper gun, paddled like a freight train, and it was like my no excuse board. It's like you can't pull back on a gun. Like you're already committed before it's even a wave. You're
already going down.
You're going. And a lot of people are like, oh, you know,
right.
The cool guys like surf shorter boards and take off right under the lip, and that's where it's really important. You have to be like, you know, be the kook. You know, that's almost like a takeaway from that I would give to people. The fear of being a kook makes the biggest kooks in the world happy. So like, be okay to be a kook. Like, go to a surf break and ask questions. You know, like, it's okay if you go up to a local charge and you say, hey, I'm not from around here. Where should I paddle out? Like, they're not going to be like, oh, leave me alone. They'll see that as a sign of respect. They're like, okay, this guy, he's like, you could be a terrible surfer and you're not a kook. You can also be a really good surfer and you're a big kook, you know? So like, I would say like, be willing to be a kook, you know, like go to a place and say, you know, I know nothing. Like, what, can you tell me something about this break? Like, oh yeah, you know, you don't want to paddle out here. You want to paddle out there. And like, you know, don't be hard on yourself if you feel like kook. Just like think like, why am I kook? And in the surfing world, most people would be more than happy to point out like, you're a kook because you took out a 6.0 and you're not good enough to ride a 6.0. And listen to them, you know, like don't just get mad and be like, I'm not kook, I'm a shredder.
Yeah.
Like, just be like, oh, all right. Like, be like, the Hawaiians they're good at this. It's
Right.
about being humble. It's about respect. Like respect surfers. Respect doesn't mean like
Totally.
bow down to surfers, but just like people who are better than you, like just listen to them. Don't fight with them. So like the
Yeah.
equipment has to be perfect. The conditions have to be, they don't have to be awesome conditions, but the conditions have to work for the equipment you're on. So they're linked, you know?
Right.
Like if it's tiny,
Right,
take
right.
out a big foamy and have some fun.
Yeah.
So the equipment, the conditions, and then there was a third one. I'm just trying to remember exactly what it is. But like those are the two biggest, really. The third one is like your mental
For sure.
state, and you know, but like and
Yeah.
just having fun with it. But I've seen a lot of surfers who have like really good board, and you know, the conditions just aren't happening, and they're like, oh, I'm a bad surfer, and I was that surfer, man. I can't remember what, like a week ago, I was like, oh man, my surfing's taking a dive. Like I'm just not performing the turns I know I can do.
Right.
And then I realized that like,
Right.
you know, the conditions just weren't conducive to good surfing at my level. Now a good surfer can ride in any conditions, right? So that's cool. But like,
Right.
that's like Kelly Slater, John, some pros. Like pros can make anything look fun, right? Because they're just
Right,
awesome.
right,
Human
totally.
surf really well. But most of us mortals, right? Like if the conditions aren't safe, or they're surfing even in the wrong part of the lineup, they might have the right board for the day, but they might just be surfing like in the wrong part of the lineup, and it's just no waves are happening. So that's good for intermediates and
totally.
advanced. Like whatever level you're surfing, you gotta have the right equipment and the right conditions, and that's
Yeah.
what
Well, so-
I've seen. Like as a surf coach, like I've seen people progress so fast. I had a guy who never surfed, and within a week we were taking a boat out to an outer reef so that he could work a bit more on his full roundhouse cutbacks. And I was like, Jesus, like it blew my mind. Like,
No
I didn't
way.
learn that fast. Yeah, and he'd never
1 week.
touched a surfboard. Yeah, so like we did foamies the first day, and we started already doing some turns. And then on the second day we were doing foamies, and he was doing some turns, and he fully got his head around going down the line. And on the third day we were going down the line, and I was like, you need a hard board. And then like as a little treat at the end of his surf like week, at the end of his week trip, like we're like, I'll take you out to the outer reef because you can go down the line, so I know you're safe and you're going to be able to stay away from the reef. And then he was like, he wasn't doing full roundhouse cutback, but he was going down the line on a reef.
Okay.
He was like doing little cutbacks to like keep himself in the pocket, and I was like blown away. I'm like,
That's
this is
sick.
incredible. And I was like, what? How did we achieve that as a team, like him and I? And like what happened was we had perfect waves, like a wave pool, and then we had. I worked for this company at the time that had like, I think they had like 200 or 300 surfboards. So as a coach, I could just be like, this one. It was like I could choose whatever equipment I wanted, and like that company gave me all the tools to be the best coach I could be, and they gave me boats, surfboards, like anything I needed to be a kick-ass coach. They're like, here you go, and
That's awesome.
and it made me think. I was like, all right. And then I had other experiences where like super overweight, unathletic people, and I give them like a huge board or like a paddle board, and they're doing pop-ups, and there's guys in other surf schools next to me with super athletic like gymnasts who can't pop up because they're just on like they're giving them like
Right.
like a performance shortboard.
Right.
And I'm like, this dude's never surfed and he's 300 pounds and he just took like 5 waves to the beach. So is that an amazing coach? No, it's not. It's because I gave him a retardedly big board.
But that's what makes you a good coach, though. That's what makes you a good coach, though.
Yeah, being able to be flexible. But like, for anyone who's watching this or listening to this, who's like, I'm not having fun, like I'm not progressing as how I should. Like, look at your equipment and look at where you're surfing and the waves that you're surfing. Like, if you live at a place where it's like onshore or marsh and you're not progressing very much, that's not your fault. It's blame the onshore marsh, because it's really difficult to ride on that. You know, it is simple.
Yeah.
Science, like hydrodynamic things that happen. That if you have a perfect canvas, like you can surf better. Simple as that. Like, so equipment and conditions. Like anytime you're having a bad surf, just come in and be like, what did I ride and what were the conditions? And then you might find that you're not so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why you're set up in Mexico. because you're gonna have
Wave.
kind of good waves all the time, and it's kind of like the perfect situation for a coaching kind of to go
Yeah.
and learn how to surf, right?
This area like is good for intermediate beginners. Once you start ripping, like, don't come to Sayulita. You'll have fun,
But it's a very good place to develop, though.
Yeah, and if you are a good surfer and you come to Sayulita, Mexico, you're still gonna have a great time because there's like amazing food, great nightlife, like loads of beautiful people running around everywhere, like distracting. And then and you just jump on your longboard and you're gonna have a blast. And you're gonna you can bring your family or your kids who you maybe wouldn't bring to more heavy waves. So it's a great place to live and it's a great place to surf. But like if you want to shred, it's frustrating because it's not powerful and big and steep. Like if you want to learn how to really surf and do radical maneuvers, you need a vertical face. Like you need a lot of steepness. And if the waves are this size, if the waves are that shape,
right?
And what's funny is the locals here in Sayulita can shred a really powerless burger of a wave. Don't know how they do it. It's like magic to me. And I love watching them ride.
Right.
Those people are incredible.
But it sounds like the perfect place. It sounds like the perfect place to be like a beginner, intermediate surfer that's like trying to improve, right? So that's probably why you have your surf school set up there.
Yeah, and it's warm water, and people will give you a high five, and like there's also just, I'd say 85% of surfers in this area are like beginner, intermediate. So like, no one's gonna be like, go back to the valley, bro. Everyone's like, oh, high five, like you're killing it today. Like it's really supportive and it's quite lovely,
Oh, that sounds like a good community. Yeah.
There was something I was just gonna share with you. I was a musician, I think, like a really good bass player or some kind of musician, and he said something that really stuck with me, man, about like progression. And he was like, he's like, when I was little, like I never practiced. And people were like, what are you talking about? I didn't practice my instrument. Like, and the interviewer was like, well, you must have done because you're like one of the best guitarists in the world.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but he's like, I wasn't that good in school and like I wasn't that like disciplined. So like if someone said the word practice, that means sit down, focus, and like do repetition, like, and I was like, I didn't practice my instrument. I played my instrument. And I really played, like I took it down and I was like, what is this noise? Boink, twang, like, oh, that's fun. And like, I played with different scales and like, I didn't sit down and practice my scales, like 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah.
Cause that's like no kid or like we're all kids inside. Like no one wants to practice. Some people do because they're really disciplined.
Yeah.
But like, you don't have to be a disciplined person to achieve great results. So what his whole thing was is like, don't practice your instrument, play it, actually play with it, have a little game with your instrument. Like, how does this sound? Woo, have fun with it, explore it. And if you mess around with your instrument every day, you'll become really good. And if you practice every day, like real focused, you'll become good too, but it's not very nice. It's not a nice process. You got to enjoy the process as much as the end result,
That's so true. So you think about like Kelly Slater, and did you hear about how he skipped out on hanging out with Obama for a second time to go surf pipe? Like,
no,
the dude is
that's pretty funny.
Yeah, the dude is like, in his 50s now, and he's still so stoked on surfing. Like, that's how much he loves surfing. I think that's what makes surfing so unique is that, like you look at most pro athletes and like once you stop playing basketball or whatever it is, like you're kind of done. But with surfing, it's like you still love it so much. That's what you do when you have time off. And like Kelly still loves it this much, even though he's been doing it for whatever 1,000 years, right?
And that's
crazy.
And that's not a coincidence that the guy who loves surfing and is the most stoked is winning world tour events at 50.
Right.
And that
he's
got more world titles than anybody else. Like, that's not a coincidence that he's loves surfing and he's good at it. Like, that's what I'm trying to get across with this key, point is like, play surfing. Like, I had do you remember, what was his name? Like the manager out there, and then can't believe I've lost it. But he's from the Channel Islands, Jersey and Guernsey. I don't know if he was there. Sometimes he's like
Andy?
English sounding.
You mean in Northern Sumatra?
Brother, wasn't it? Yeah, it was Andy.
I don't know.
Maybe it was Andy. No, Andy's from Australia. Anyway, like I can't believe I haven't forgot his name because I know him really well. If he's listening, sorry.
Yeah.
But he was incredible, sir. And like when he was like 15, 16, he was winning like European national titles. But like he just wasn't that into competing. But he could compete because he was amazing. And he was the most playful surfer I've ever watched, and he's incredible. You know, that's the reason he moved to Indonesia and married an Indonesian, and he has a couple kids now.
Oh, Ross. You're talking about Ross.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ross de Groof.
Yeah.
Like, Ross is super inspiring surfer to me because, like, he's really good. But, like, he's also likes to have a laugh. And he's like, it's like, Johnny, you know, if you're ever getting tired out here, and he was my boss at the time, and he was like, if you just need to get back, like, and we're in the middle of some project, and we're working hard, like, fixing one of the villas, or, like, we have a huge group, and he's like, if you need to have a bow, just let me know. Sometimes you just need a bow. Sometimes you need to just go have fun. And I was like, you're the best boss ever, Ralph. Like, this is incredible advice. But like,
never had a boss like that.
Nah, he was so cool. And like, he's a surfer too, right? So, but like, you know, like,
dude, I still remember how crazy Ross was, because when I was there, I remember he had a shoulder injury. He basically could not lift his hand above his head. He couldn't paddle with one hand. Couldn't paddle with one hand. Well, yeah. And then I remember like rolling up to a spot, and like somehow he paddles once into this wave and gets barreled on like the first wave. Like, and I'm just like, how did you do that with one arm? You know?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It was insane.
Like, he used to do things.
That's how good of a surfer he was.
Yeah, he is that good, and he loves it too. He's still smiling out there, and like his little half English kids are gonna be ripping. It'd be cool to go over there and see. They're probably already doing airs now, at like age 3 or whatever. But yeah, like the thing
that's so cool.
Ross taught me that I'll never forget is, he's like, "Do you want to go play surfing?" He used to say that, like when we done all our jobs, right, and like we had a spare minute. He's like, right, boys, like, all right, we fixed the villa, like we've done our chores, like we just dropped Van off at the airport, like should we go play surfing? And we all just used to say it just because it sounded funny. But like I only now realize the wisdom of that, because he didn't practice surfing. He didn't surf. He went and played surfing. Like you go play soccer or you go play basketball or whatever. Like,
all right, Johnny. Well, that's some really good stuff, some real gold that you've been dropping here, but I feel like we should probably work towards wrapping up. We're definitely probably going to have you come back again, maybe to talk about what it's like charging super heavy mainland Mexico. But I thought we'd just talk about, you know, how can people get a hold of you? I know that you run a surf school and whatnot. Like, so what do you do, and how can people get a hold of you?
So if you just type Sunset Sessions Mexico into Google, it'll come up with Google Business, and then there's a link to the website there. And then phone number, like anyone can call me from anywhere in the world. I will never mind about that. WhatsApp is a really useful tool as well. Like if you don't want to sift through the website, you just want to be like, hey, I have a question. My phone number is the same one as WhatsApp, so hammer me with that one, no problem. Emails, I can reply to those, but like I'm not the best at it, so it might take a while. But yeah, like everything, you know, Instagram is Sunset Sessions Mexico, website sunsetsessionsmexico.com. If you type in just like his, I'm here, you'll find me from that alone.
Okay, cool. And I'll make sure to put a link into the notes and everything so people can find you. And so just so people know, like, do you do everything from beginners to intermediates? Do you do advanced surfers as well? Like,
yeah, so we do mainly beginners at the moment, because that's where most of the money is, just because most people, you know, this area is like a very beginner friendly area, but maybe with your help, Van, because of your awesome followership and stuff. Like I'm putting all my money and time into investing in teaching more advanced clients. I have a couple of clients that will do like, you know, they'll come out here for 6 weeks and they'll just surf once a week with me or twice a week with me. And those guys have done incredible stuff. And I really enjoy like my training equipment and skills is all like video analysis, high end, personal, professional coaching. And we have like boats, boards, everything, balance tools. We have access to swimming pools. We actually have access to the concrete skate park with like surf skates, which I think
Awesome.
is huge. You could probably do a whole podcast on surf skates. Find some surf skate legend. They're so
Cool.
good for training. But yeah, I do everything. I prefer to do advanced, but I'll do beginners all day because
Yeah.
I
All
love
right.
that too.
Cool, man. Well,
And yeah, I
we'll
was
have
just
to
gonna
have you.
mention-
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to mention that like the Martin Dunn, if you go to his website, he's an incredible surf coach. And both Van and I have gone on there. And like, if you just email him, he'll answer anything. And he has this little system that I'm just tried out. There's like this surfing cards. And that's just if you want to surf on your own and you don't have a coach, you just like pick a card out and then it gives you like, like whatever, bottom turn, and it'll give you 3 key points, and you actually take it down to the beach, and then it just keeps you on track, like when you're learning specific maneuvers or you're learning wave selection or whatever. And I just thought it was a really cool idea because like I'm a messy person and I'll never remember to like bring a notebook, and if I do bring a notebook it will get covered in sand, so like you get like a little thingy. And yeah, I'm using that with my clients now.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Just keeps you on track. Yeah, so I thought I'd mention that one. And then we can maybe Van, we could link like Brett Barley, Chapin, like from Surf Pro Techniques.
Yep.
And then who are my main ones? Oh, have you experienced barefoot surf? I learned a bunch of stuff off there with YouTube
Okay.
videos.
Cool.
Have you
Yeah.
seen those guys?
Yeah, I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
So like YouTube videos, those guys are made.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for joining us, and yeah, I'm sure people are gonna be excited to hear. I love your message of just having fun. It's awesome. So, thanks a bunch, man.
Go play surfing. Yeah.
All right, cool. Hey everyone, it's Van. Hopefully you've been enjoying the podcast. Hopefully you've been listening to some good stories, getting some good tips that are helping you improve as a surfer. If so, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review. It'll only take you literally a few seconds, and share it with your friends. That's the best way you can support me so I can continue to create awesome new content for you. So thanks.